James Mathias is my colleague at the Menzies Research Centre. He and I have been working on energy policy and more recently on nuclear for some time. James, glad you could join us here on ADHTV. We should have you on more often. Let's talk about that nuclear debate. And a couple of things that happened this week. Number one, I don't know if you saw it, but the ABC's Q&A, that notorious show of theirs, covered nuclear on Monday. They did a poll amongst ABC viewers and it came out 51% to 46% in favour of nuclear power. Now, when the ABC audience is recognising that nuclear power is good for the country, surely the debate's almost won, isn't it?
It's probably essentially the first time, Nick, you could say that the ABC audience probably represented mainstream Australia. I didn't see the episode, I did hear about it, and I would have loved to have seen the host's face, or the producer's face for that matter, when the results came back in.
You and I have talked about the age issue before, and our polling has shown that people of your age, let's say under 35s, are much less, their minds are much less firmly made up on this, whether for or against. I sense that young people now are recognising that nuclear is the best way to reduce emissions, to get to that zero emissions goal, which so many of them want. I think the debate is changing amongst people of your generation. What do you think?
Oh yeah, and at the very least, Nick, people of my generation realise the fact that the nuclear debate was won in the 90s by those opposing nuclear power in Australia. And so essentially people of my generation have not even been allowed to have the debate. So at the very least, our minds are cognizant of the fact that the technology has changed a lot since the 90s, and now all we're asking for, people of my generation and younger, is the simple ability to have the debate and discussion and not be told by those generations older than us that saw a previous technology and say previous accidents that caused their opposition to nuclear. Things have changed and everybody just needs to recognise that, and that's why people of my generation are pushing for more of a debate on this at the moment.
The nuclear sceptics, people like Energy Minister Chris Bowen, I think they're running out of arguments, aren't they? It really comes down now, if you listen to him, just about the only argument he really argues with any force is it's too expensive. But that's, I think that's changed. His ability to make that claim changed this week dramatically when BHP came out and urged the government to get rid of the moratorium on nuclear power and allow them to do it. I mean, here's the thing, isn't it? If a private company who's as successful and large as BHP says, well, we want to have a go at it, who's Chris Bowen to say it's too expensive?
Well, Nick, Chris Bowen is a small man puffed up on nonsense. Everything he says into this debate is not based on fact. And I'll just make this simple point about things that Chris Bowen says. Chris Bowen looks down the barrel of the camera at the Australian people and he says renewables are the cheapest form of electricity. Well, to that I say this, we've got more renewables in the system than ever before, and power prices are higher than they've ever been before. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. And when companies like BHP come out, BHP only ever makes decisions in a commercial fashion. They owe that fiduciary care to their shareholders. And so when BHP comes out and makes a bold statement that nuclear should be at least accepted in Australia, you know that BHP sit on a rather large reserve and they would rather Australia transition to this fuel so that they can fuel it whilst also exporting iron ore at a large price overseas without any worry.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I suppose with renewables, with wind and solar, if you subsidise them, as we are through issuing renewable energy certificates, if we don't make them pay for the extension of the electric grid, which has got to be put in place in order to service their power plants, if we ignore the fact that they have to be backed up 2/3 of the time with other forms of energy, then maybe they are cheaper. But it's an argument that doesn't hold water, I don't think. Do you?
No, not at all. And the whole argument just incenses me with the fact that we can't properly debate what the statistics are. Even when you look at deaths as a ratio per energy source, 150 people's lives are lost per 1,000 terawatt hours of solar energy, 150 to 400 people when you're talking about rooftop solar. With nuclear power, it's 90. And that's from a really reputable source on all the statistics about what all energy forms cost life. And of course, one life lost is always too much.